And we are live. Awesome, guys. So this is day 3. This should be nice. This should be really, really nice. Um, Let me see if our YouTube account is live. And we are live. Awesome. Yeah, so guys, the first 5 minutes, I'm just gonna chill. I'm gonna wait for a few people to tune in, take any questions, help you guys set up whatever is needed to get started. So yeah, any questions from anyone from any of the DSC leads here? Awesome, 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 awesome. So yeah, so if there's no questions, I guess I'm going to play some sort of song or something. Can anyone recommend me a song to play?
Do you have the Skylights playlist? You can play that.
Okay. Actually, don't have
Or
a
maybe
playlist.
that the lo-fi music on YouTube.
Okay, awesome. Let me play some lo-fi beats.
Yes.
Epic, 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 epic. So today should be a really, really fun session. Today, our whole Netflix app is going to materialize, and it should be really, really nice because we'll be learning a whole lot of things. We'll be repeating a few things. So it should be very effective. Also, today, we want to be more engaging. So if you guys have any questions, we're happy to take them. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Great. So Great, guys. I think we can get started now. From where we left off yesterday. Hey, Jasmine, what's up? Welcome back. Welcome back. So yeah, guys, today is day 3. So workshop number 3 of our Intro to Web Development series, where we have been building the Netflix landing page clone while learning HTML and CSS. Right. So today should be a whole lot more engaging. So we'll be taking a whole lot more questions today. We want this session to be really helpful for you guys. We're happy to repeat concepts. We will be wrapping up the Netflix landing page today. So we'll be learning a few more important things. Like we've covered a whole lot of the basics of HTML and CSS, but today we will be covering just a few more things, and this should be great for you guys to add to your portfolio. And if you ever work on any future projects, this can be used as starter code. So this should be a lot of fun, guys. So to get started, I hope you guys have your GitHub repository, like have access to the GitHub repository, so that you can download the code and continue from where we left off. So I'm going to just open up the where we left off. So this is basically where we left off last week, right? So we learned flex, we did a little bit of styling, we learned how to put a background here, and now we've also done the header over here, and we've used some flex over there, right? So this is what we've done. And as you can see, it's still quite different from what's going on over here, right? The actual Netflix landing page, which I have open in front of me. So firstly, there's like this background over here. The button is a little more in the center. Also, we have this this heading, this whole heading over here, this whole section over here is actually supposed to be slightly a little more lower, right? If we look at our app, it's a bit higher, right? So all these things will be covered and wrapped up today. So this will be stuff that will be wrapped up today. And Harjot was the one who was working on this, and he's going to come back and is going to take us through this. And we will just be wrapping it up, right? But let us start off by talking about a few concepts, right? So where we left off yesterday, I mean, not yesterday, but last time, was basically the CSS. We finished at flex wrap, right? We did flexbox. We basically learned that flex is a tool used to place elements and position them relative to one another, so that your elements look well organized on your screen, right? Now let us dive into the elements flow, right? So this is really, really important, like understanding exactly how the elements flow in CSS, right? Any of the HTML elements, right? So the couple of things I want to talk about is the display property, right? So the display property is used normally to specify how an element is going to be placed relative to another element, right? So for example, we've worked with divs already, right? So if I open the code again, let me open up the code again. I actually think I have it open. Here it is. So this is the code that we were working on, right? And this is where we've reached, right? So you can see that we have a couple of HTML elements. We have the div, we have the image tag, right? We have the h1, h2 div, we have a form tag, input and button, right? And it's important to know that there is a concept of flow in these elements, right? So how an element, like how would you put elements side by side, right? How would you be able to resize elements, right? We have done a little bit of resizing. For example, the banner wrap over here, I can see that we've given it a height of 180 view height, right? Which means it takes 80% of the height of the screen starting from the top, right? So that is an example of a height, right? And we're only able to give this height because of a display property, okay? But as you can see, there is no display property over here. Like all these different selectors that we've created, we don't have a display property, right? And the display property, there's 3 options for a display property, right? So what I'll do now is, just to demonstrate this really quickly, I'm just going to create a new div right over here, okay? And I'm going to call this div a test div, right? I'm going to call it test, just so that we can demonstrate exactly what I mean by all these different ways that this how CSS elements flow, right? And I'm in my CSS document over here. So on my left-hand side, I have my HTML document. On my right-hand side, I have the CSS document that's going to style my HTML elements. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do .test, open it up, and then I'm going to give this a height. Actually, before I give a height, I'm going to give it a display property of block, right? And now there's something to note, like actually this is not necessary to even do because divs by default take a display property. And now what is the display, what does the block property mean, right? What does the display block property mean? Normally we would type it like this, display block, right? Alternatively, there is, let me just add it up here. So there's display block, there's inline, and then there's inline block, right? So these are the different options we have, right, for styling these elements. And divs by default are display block. Display block elements fill the parent container and get stacked one on top of the other. So if we come back to our Netflix landing page, you can see that we've used divs, right? Now, when we use divs, by default, it takes the display block property, meaning that now any element that we add below this div is going to take that exact same, it's just going to stack one on top of the other. All right, so that's basically the display block property, and divs by default take display block. Now, normally we use display block when we want to stack elements one on top of the other and when we want it to fill the parent container, right? So if I give this, for example, if I just give this demo div that we're creating here a height of, let's say, 20 pixels, right? And let me give it a width of 100 view width. So 100 view width basically means that it's going to take the width of our viewport, which is our browser, and it's just going to stretch it 100%. So I'm just going to do that real quick, and I'm going to so that we can visually see it, I'm going to add a background color, right, of yellow. Okay, and I'm just going to save my HTML document so that it appears on my actual page. And you can see that we have our div there, right? That is a very small looking div, just 10 pixels. And you can see it's a block meaning that it just filled the entire parent container, and that's what it looks like. And we can block elements, we can give it a height and width, and we can play around with them like that, right? But let's say that we want to, let's change this to, let's give this a width of, let's just change it to 50 pixels. Let's give it a width of 50 pixels as well, right? And then I also I'll create a second div, right? And I'm going to call this test2. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to give this a different color, right? I just want to give this a different color so that I can demonstrate how the elements will be placed now and why block is important, right? So you can see that this is, let me save my HTML document and let the page reload. And you can see that now we have our boxes over here, right? And because it's the block element, right, the display is block, it's going to be stacked one on top of the other, right? Now, if I come back over here and I try to do inline, okay, let's see what happens, right? I'll try to do inline over here. And you can see that our blue box has suddenly disappeared, right? Our blue box has actually disappeared because we actually have a problem, right? Because normally what tends to happen is with inline elements, the idea is that we want the elements to be placed in the same line, right? So if test2 is inline, right, and test is block, right, we're supposed to have them still stacked one below the other. But if we make test inline and test2 inline, we want them to be on the same line. But it's still not working. Like we can see that test2 has not yet appeared over here because we need to use inline block. When we use inline, we cannot specify the height and width of elements, right? Now, there are a few elements that are inline by default, right? So spans, for example, are inline by default. And normally a span, we normally cover this in a whole lot of detail. We use span a whole lot, extremely powerful. It's inline by default. And with inline elements, you cannot specify height and width, right? So spans are normally used, like, for example, if you want to use an icon and then next to the icon, you want to put like a small description, right? So that's what spans are used for normally. right? And it'll take minimal space in a div, and it'll place elements in line, right? So with this, well, again, just to recap, we've covered two display properties. The first one is block, the second one is inline, and divs by default are block, spans by default are inline, right? Now, if we try to give a span a height and width, it's not going to work, because with inline elements, you cannot specify height and width. So that's where inline block elements come in, right? So images, for example, are inline block, meaning that they will be in the same line, right? We want these elements to come on the same line, and display inline block will put the divs on the same line. So if I come back over here, and instead of block, because I want it to be on the same line, I change it to inline block. So guys, the reason why we're just directly jumping to inline block here is because we can specify the height and width for inline block elements, whereas for inline elements, we cannot specify the height and width because it doesn't allow, right? It doesn't recognize those properties. That's why our div didn't even appear, because it doesn't recognize that we've given it a height and width, you know? So now you can see that I gave it inline block, I gave div 1 inline block, I gave div 2 inline block, and now they're both on the same line. And now we can specify the height and width, all right? So the biggest point I wanna get across over here is that for display property, there are three main things that you need to be aware of. Is the block property, the inline, and the inline block. With inline, you cannot specify height and width. With inline block, you can specify height and width. For block elements, an example is divs. Divs are block by default. Spans are inline by default. Images are inline block by default, right? Now, just to also cover display none, like if I make this display div 2 over here, display none, as you probably guessed, it's just gonna make it disappear, right? It's just not gonna appear anymore. So if I come back here and I look at it, you can see that it's display none. I mean, the blue box doesn't appear anymore, right? So that's basically the main things about the flow of elements, right? And if we move on now, there's the video element, but before getting to the video element, let us focus a little more on our app right now. So we have discussed flow. Now you guys are aware of the flow. You guys are aware of a little bit of flex. Like I'll be going through some more flex right now, just briefly. I'm just gonna remove these elements for now because we don't need it. That was just for demo purposes. I'm gonna remove that real quick. Great. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to start working on the next part, right? So if I open our Netflix, actually, let me save this file. If I open our Netflix landing page that we wanna clone, you can see that these elements over here, we want to build this next, right? We will get back to this, right? So don't worry about that. We'll get back to that. Now we want to cover this. So in order to do this, right, there's a couple of things. So as you can see, firstly, there's two sections over here. So we have one section on the left here, and we have one section on the right here. So what we're doing right now is just looking at the screen, we're analyzing and seeing how would we go about placing the elements, right? It's really important you visually plan how you're going to create your divs so that you can style it accordingly, right? So basically you can see that on the left here, we have this info, right? And then on the right here, we have like this whole TV stuff going on, right? So if I just inspect this, right? So that we can see how Netflix has done this effect. So you can see it makes the website look very interactive, very dynamic. It actually looks very nice. You can see that, I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit. Great. Yeah, so basically what's going on over here, we have this container. So I'm just analyzing how Netflix has done their divs. And then inside that container, we have this image, right? And then inside that image, we have some sort of video, and you can see that the video is not inside of that image, right? So what is going on over here? Like, how do we go about doing this, right? So let's actually firstly just set up our structure on our site, right? So the first things first, let's write out exactly what divs we want to look at. So the first thing is we need to create an outer div. Anytime you're working with divs, you want an outer div and you want to have inner divs, right? So the outer div, I'm going to call it info container, right? And then inside info container, we have two divs, right? We have two main divs we're dealing with. So the one on the left and the one on the right, okay? So the one on the left, I'm just gonna call it info because it's got some kind of info. And the one on the right, I'm gonna call it TV container, okay? Great. So basically now we have our info and we have our TV container, and you can see that we already have some information over here, right? The H1 enjoy your TV and watch on your smart TVs and all this stuff. So what I'll do is I'm gonna just use what we've done before, Command X, paste that there, save it, and it's still gonna look really horrible right now, right? We cannot even differentiate what's going on over here. We still have all these elements, right? But we cannot even differentiate what's going on. So what I'll do is, firstly, I'm just going to comment out the footer stuff and this about us stuff. So just a reminder to comment out, you use command /. And then you can see that now we actually have just these two things, okay? You can see visually nothing appears, right? We've just placed these elements. But instead of making this P, I just want to make this H2 because it's more like a subtitle, right? So we have H1, this is our H1, and then this is H2, so heading 2. And I'm just going to remove the strong tags because it's not really necessary in this instance. I mean, Netflix doesn't really use it right now. And I am going to just change this to H2, the closing tag, save that, and then we have our info stuff done. Okay, cool. Now in our TV container, what is going on, right? So first things first, we can see that we have this image over here. So I just dragged this image from the Netflix page right now, and you can see that there's a TV image, and then inside the TV image, we have some sort of video that's playing, which is really cool. It's like an interesting way of doing it. So what we'll do now is we're going to use the image, right? We've dealt with image before. In the TV container, what I'll do is I just want to, just for sake of simplicity, I just want to create two divs. There's no harm in creating divs. So I'm going to create the TV div, and then I'm going to create a video div, okay? And inside the TV div, I just want to put an image with that link, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to write image over here, and then VS Code is going to give me the option of what source I want to use. And I'm just going to grab the source directly from this landing, the Netflix landing page over here from the inspect, right? I'm going to grab it, put it in here, and then I'm going to save that. And then there's also a video element, right? And just because you guys haven't seen a video element before, it's, as the name suggests, it's used to create videos and add videos to your landing pages. So I'm sure you guys have seen many landing pages where they're like embedded videos. We normally use the video element, the video HTML element for that. So what I'll do is I could just copy this, or like, let's actually, like, just to make your guys' lives easier, when you inspect, you can actually check out the video element over here, right? And you can literally right click, and then you can copy the element, right? And then if I come back to my code inside the video, I'm just going to add this video element. And you can see VS Code has cleaned it up for me, right? So there's a couple of things just to note over here. Firstly, they have a class, which we do not need. And then they have autoplay none. So it's just basically saying that the video has to be on autoplay. So every time the page opens, the video will automatically start playing. Plays inline means it's just going to continue playing wherever it is in line with the elements. You know, muted means there is no sound. Loop means that the moment it stops, it has to start again, right? So these are like attributes you can pass in. And then source just specifies exactly which video do we want, which video are we pointing to, right? So bear in mind, guys, we've not done any styling yet. We've just created a div. We've just compartmentalized everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this now, okay? And then I'm going to come back to our page. It's still going to look really horrible, but at least all the elements should be there, right? So you can see on the left, we have our H1, we have our H2, and then we have the TV image. And what we have to do now is we have to place this video inside that TV, right? So there's a lot that we have ahead of us right now. And you'll be surprised to see how easy this is, okay? So first things first, let's try to put everything in one line, right? Because remember, we created two divs, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to try to put everything in one line right now, right? And the best way to do that is we come back to our style.css file now, and we're going to start styling this element. So I'm going to do .info, .info container, and then I'm just going to give it a display of flex, right? So the moment you do flex, right, by default, the flex direction is row. So it's going to look at all the divs that are there and it's going to place it in a one row. So now you can see that we have two main outer divs here, right? So we have the info container, and then just to make it look a little more clearer, we have two main divs. We have the info and they have the TV container, okay? And what's going on here? We've just used display flex. Flex direction is row by default, and you can see that everything is in a row, right? And here, what's happening in here, the elements have gone one below the other because the display flex is only applied to the outer elements. Inside TV container, remember, by default, anytime we create divs, the display properties block. So it's going to get stacked one on top of the other. So I hope things are making sense now. Let me actually just open the YouTube chat real quick just to see if we have any questions. Great, awesome. Hope everyone is following along. Please let us know if you have any questions. Awesome, great. So you can see that now with our info container, we have these elements that are placed like, okay. Now what I want to do, right, is just to make things look a little better, I just want to make it look very similar to how the Netflix page does it. So the first thing is I'm just going to give it a background black, and then color white. So what this does is it's going to give a background color of black, and then color targets the fonts, right? So any text that's going to be there is going to be white color font. So you can see that everything inside here is white. So you can see it's kind of pulling through. It still doesn't look great. It's like it's pulling through, right? What I'll do here is I'm just going to remove this selectors that was added last week, and H1 and H2, it's going to apply the same font sizes for H1 and H2. So you can see that our font sizes now look more legitimate, right? Now you can see that everything is still in a row, right? But not everything is like center, right? It's like it's top left and then top right and then stacked one below the other, right? So now in order to make this centered, right, we can use something known as justify content, right? So just to recap what justify content does, right? It flex direction, align items. So justify content allows you to align items horizontally, right? So horizontally, it's going to say, okay, you want it to be in the center, right? Whereas with align items is like the vertical axis, okay? So the vertical axis meaning that you want the, if you have a div like this, right? If a div looks like this, you want to put something in the middle, right? So align items is the vertical axis, whereas justify content is the horizontal axis. This is only when the flex direction is horizontal, right? Row, when the flex direction is row, right? So the justify content right now is what's happening is that everything is like left and right. So what we want to do is we want to align items vertically. So justify content, we'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's just sort out the align items, right? So if I do align item center, everything I wanted to appear in the center. So you can see that enjoy your TV now appears in the center. It looks a little better than how it was before, right? Now, what we want to do next is let us style what's going on. Like, let's style this, right? We want to put this video inside that TV. So now this might sound very simple. Hey, we just got to put this video inside the TV. Like, how hard can that be? But in order to do this, we need to learn one more concept. Okay, so let's go back to our slides and let's cover this concept. So this is the position property. So like before we went in detail with the display property, and now we're going to talk about the position property. So by default, right, all elements in HTML have a position property of static. So anytime we've created our divs, let me just open the code. You can see anytime we've created the divs, by default, everything takes a static property, right? So that is how the elements will appear in the flow, right? So the flow of the elements is basically like, from top to bottom, that's the flow of the elements, right? And it's going to appear static, okay? Static means the way we type it is how it's going to appear, right? But now, let's say we want to put this video inside this TV, right? What's going on here in our code is that one is appearing below the other, right? Actually, now before I explain you this property, right? So we can see that one is below the other. Like, what other way do we have to get it like closer to it? Using the knowledge we have right now, the best way would be to do display flex and make it in a row, right? So if I come back over here to our code, we have TV container, right? What I'll do is I'm going to do .tv container, and I'm going to do display of flex, okay? And now you can see that everything appears in one line, but it's still not what we want, right? So because what's happening now in the element flow, right? Because we've used display flex, the element on the left is the TV, and then the element on the right is the video. We need to kind of disrupt this flow right now so that we can put this video inside the TV, right? So in order to do that, we need to understand a few properties. So there's the position relative property, right? So position elements relative to its original position in the element flow, right? So what this means is that, let's say we have this video right now, this video property right now.
Sorry, I can't search for.
So we have this video property, like this video element, right? If I open our code and I have this video class over here, I'm just going to style that. I'm going to do .video. And I'm going to try this. I'm going to give this a position of relative, okay? And if I give it a position of relative, now what this allows me to do is kind of disrupt the flow, right? Now I can place this element like relative to its current position. I can place it like maybe 20 pixels left, 20 pixels right, and I can play around with it, you know? So what I'll do is I'm going to say top, right? I want it to go 20 pixels from the top, meaning it's going to push it down, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to say, maybe 20 pixels is a bit small. Let me do 100 pixels, right? I'm going to save that. And we should see the video moved down, right? You can see that that's by using the top property. So we use position relative and we've disrupted the flow, and now we can style the flow, okay? So now you can see we've moved 100 pixels from the top. Now there's something cool, which actually blew my mind when I was learning HTML, CSS. If you do minus, right, it'll actually push it like that. And I'm sure you guys have seen websites where like elements are like, you know, on top of one another, and like there's that kind of, you know, overlapping effect, which makes the websites look cool. It's by using this property. So you use position relative, and then you use top, and you say like from the top, I want it to like overlap up the above element, right? So you can see that position relative allows you to disrupt the original flow, right? And that's just playing with the video right now, okay? Cool. And remember, bear in mind that this does not affect the other elements in the flow. So you can see that in our site over here, it's just moved 100 pixels from its original position in the flow, right? Whereas the other elements have not changed. The other elements are in the same place. That is the cool thing about position relative. It doesn't disrupt the flow of other elements, right? Now, if we move on, there's also the position absolute option. So with position absolute option, it totally removes the element from the normal flow, right? So now it's no longer in the normal flow when we use position absolute, right? The element will be positioned in relation to the first ancestor that is not static or that is not in the natural flow, okay? So what that basically means that if the parent, so when they say ancestor element, it means parent, right? So for example, for TV container, the ancestor element is the info container. The parent is the info container, okay? So that's what it basically means. So if we just give this a position of absolute, so I'm just gonna remove top for now. I'm gonna give this a position of, I'm gonna give this a position of absolute, and let's see what happens, okay? So you can see that there is no ancestor element that has any other position apart from static. Everything is static right now in our document, right? And what we just read right now is the element will be positioned in relation to the first ancestor that is not static, okay? Or in the natural flow. So if we just look at this, you can see that it's position absolute, and it's basically positioned it relative to the info container, which is its parent container, okay? So you can see that what's happening here is that this element video is no longer in the flow, right? It's no longer in the document flow, and it's only relative to the info container because it is inside the info container, okay? So that's basically what's happening over here, and position absolute has taken this element outside of our flow, okay? Awesome. I hope this is making sense. I remember when I was learning this, it really took me a while to get a sense of position absolute, okay? Great. So now you can change the position of the parent to the relative. It does not alter the position of the element, right? So, so basically what this means is that if we change, because remember when we use absolute, right, it becomes absolute relative to the non-static element, to the most nearest non-static element. So normally when you want to use position absolute, what that point means is that you want to explicitly make your elements relative, right? Because as let's just read that again. Okay, the element will be positioned in relation to the first ancestor that is not static or that is not in the natural flow, right? So the element that is not static or not in the natural flow, right? So if we want to make sure that we want to position elements relative to one another, it always goes hand in hand to use position relative and then position absolute, right? Great. So the info container right now, I'm just going to make it position relative. Okay. It shouldn't really make a difference to our site. It should still look the same. But now what we've said is that you must only position yourself, right? Because remember, we've taken it out of the flow of the document, right? But we've taken it out of the flow of the document and positioned it relative to info container now, because we've given info container a position of relative. So the important thing to take away from this is that position relative and position absolute kind of work hand in hand. Okay, so if you understand that, you should be able to figure it out from here on. Okay, so that's position absolute. We'll actually be using position absolute to put this video inside our TV, right? So that should be really cool. But what I just want to quickly cover is there's another property called fixed, right? We won't really be covering this, but as the name suggests, it'll position the element fixed to the page. So just to quickly demonstrate it real quick, I'm just going to make this fixed. I just made the video fixed, and then you can see that it's fixed down there at the bottom, and I can just scroll anywhere and it just stays there in the same place. And that's what fixed does. Okay. Remember, we want to just stick to making our video absolute, right? And we made the info container, which is the parent, relative, right? So what that basically means is that our video is now only going to be positioned relative to the info container. Okay, great. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to style. Let's actually, ooh, what's going on? Let me save this video. And let us move on to styling this, right? So what we want to do now is we want to actually put this video inside the TV, right? So in order to do that, remember, position absolute and position relative go hand in hand, right? So what I'll do is we have the TV container, but now I want to style the TV. And I'll make TV a position of relative. Okay. So yeah, that really didn't make a difference. But again, like whenever you're using position absolute, it's always good practice to make sure that your element, when you're using absolute, make sure that your elements are relative. The elements that are around the absolute element are relative. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Cool. So what we want to do now is there's multiple ways of going about it. So firstly, over here, I just want to do justify content center so that we can place it in the center, right? So you can see it's in the center. Now, if I do align items, so now vertically, I want to align the items. I'm just going to make that center. And then you can see that we have it in the center, right? So look, that's one way of going about this, right? That's one way of actually placing the video inside the TV. This is just very simple. We just made it absolute. We took it outside of the flow and we were able to place it accordingly, right? Cool. So there's other ways of doing it. For example, instead of using justify content and align items, what we could have done is we could have explicitly just positioned the element like this. We could have said 20% from the top, right? And I'm just going to remove the align items. And you can see that it exactly placed it there, right? So there's multiple ways of going about this, guys. And this will remain the same no matter what the screen size, okay? Cool. Now what I'll do now is we can see that the TV, like the frame of the TV is no longer visible. The video is on top of that frame of the TV, right? So now what we need to do is we need to somehow put the TV in front of the video, okay? So that brings us to a new concept, which is actually called the Z index, right? So the z-index property specifies the stack order of an element, okay? So an element with a greater stack order is always in front of an element with a lower stack order. The z-index property only works on positioned elements. So that's why knowing the position attribute is extremely important when you want to use z-index, because it only works if the position is absolute, relative, fixed, or sticky, right? So we didn't cover sticky really, but sticky kind of like if an element is in the middle of the page and we position it as sticky and scroll past it, it's just going to stick at the top of the screen. So that's basically what that does. Okay. So now with the z-index, what I'll do is the TV I have over here, I want the TV to be ahead of the video. So I'm just going to give a z-index. Okay. Normally assume that every element by default has a z-index of 0. I'm going to give it a z-index of 1 so that it appears ahead of the TV, ahead of the video. So now you can see our frame appears and like it's kind of pulling through nicely. Okay, great. So it kind of looks similar, right? But we still have to add a few things, like a few minute details. We have like a border up there. There's like more space on the left side and the right side. If I look at the elements, exact elements, right? Yeah, there you go. If I just click on that and I scroll here in the bottom right, you can see that we have a padding of 45 pixels all around, and 45 pixels left and right padding, and top and bottom 70 pixels, right? So what I'll do is I am going to do the same thing for our info container. I am just going to give it a padding, right? So I want the padding of top and bottom to be how much? 70 pixels. And I want left and right to be 50 pixels. Sorry, 40, is it 45? Yeah, 45 pixels. Save that, and then if we come back and see our thing, it should look kind of similar. Actually, I think I mixed it up. 45 is actually left and right, and 70 is top and bottom. There we go, that looks more like it. And now let's just add that small border that we had there. So if I just go back to our Netflix app here, I just want to right click on that element, that small gray line. If I inspect that, we can see that, where is it gone? Okay, I think it's the border has been, basically what I want to do is I want to give it a border. That's what I want to do, right? So what I want to do is I want to basically give it a border. So let's just give it a small border right now. So I'm just going to give it a border top. I want it to be solid. And I'm just going to make it white right now. And I just want it to be like 20 pixels for now. It might appear a little big. Let's see. Yeah, so you can see we have white and it's like kind of big. So what I'll do is I'll just use my naked eye. Like, I don't think we really have time to measure it, but normally what we would do is we would have to actually see how they have gone about the placement. I mean, the sizing over here. And we'll find that information over here if you just spend a little more time sitting down and seeing. So you can see it's white. What I want it to be, I want it to be this grayish color that we have over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use our inspector tool over here. So color, I'm just going to give it a random color and take white. And I'm just going to click on that. I just want to grab that color. That grayish color looks really nice. So you can see it's literally gray actually. So instead of white, I'm just going to give it that color. Okay. And if we go back to our app, you can see that now we have that effect. Like we have that color there. Okay. And you can see our video is like working nice, and it actually looks very similar to the Netflix landing page. The only difference is the font, right? Unfortunately, Netflix uses proprietary font that is not publicly available. So this is the next best, this is like the next best thing, the next closest thing. Like normally if we use YouTube, we won't have such problems. Great, so this is actually looking much better, right? Let's also just add a border bottom. Right, solid 10 pixels. And you can see how it got added there. What I'll do is I'll just duplicate this, right? Because I think Netflix has 2 containers or something. And I'm just going to flip these around. Hopefully it shouldn't break anything. Yeah, okay. So Netflix does something similar here from what I remember. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see that they have a mobile device over here, and you can see that they're using position over here so that they can overlap the elements. So I hope this has made sense. What I'll do is I'm actually going to remove the border bottom, and that's it. I think that's it for this part in our clone. And we also have the footer to do, but I think before getting to that, let's see what else we can do. So now the next thing is the CSS after selector, and we're going to have Harjot take over from here.
Awesome,
okay?
Man.
Great, great, great. So what I'll do is let me push this code up so Harjot, you can actually continue working from here. And let's see if anybody has any questions for us. So
Michael says that everything's coming together. So yeah, guys, it's coming together.
Actually, you saw how it's not complicated, but just understanding how position relative and position absolute works for me was like kind of tricky. I hope that made sense. Yeah, it's just going to take a whole lot of trial and error normally in the beginning. But yeah, you can see it's actually pulling through. Like I think if we add that opacity and we just move this guy a little bit to the middle and fix that small thing there, like we're good to go. This is like actually pretty decent, right? So Jot, are you able to pull the code from your side? I've actually pushed
I'm
it.
going to do that now. I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, this is actually looking pretty decent, man.
Yeah, like if you're confused with some of the properties, like always go Google it. Especially when you're applying, you usually don't remember the property. So feel free to Google, because like we still Google a lot of things, and I mean that's how we keep on learning, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, always like yeah, we're happy to take any questions, guys. Like I'm sure for those of you who are watching the recording, maybe please feel free to reach out to us. You have our details. Like we've dropped our Instagram a couple of times, so you can try to reach us on Instagram, and we're happy to help you out. Great, Harjot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that you can share yours.
Awesome. Akhil, in the meantime, can you please drop the link to the Google Doc?
The Google Doc?
Yeah, just drop in the chat.
Sure thing.
Please. Awesome. So I just pulled a code. I've got everything here. I can see he was doing the info container, and I used the live server to run this code, and I can see everything running it quite clean. It fits my screen as well. I know Akhil's using a 13-inch MacBook, and I'm using a 15-inch, and it seems quite flexible. It's working in both computers. Fantastic, man. Cool. So the next step is to actually make it look like Netflix, the main page. And let me just open up the Netflix landing page. It has some overlay effects. The font sizes are a bit different. And even if you notice that the unlimited movies is a bit towards the center of the screen, and ours seems like a bit to the top. So let's fix that. Let me go back to my codes, open the style of CSS. Let me just open both of them side by side. Okay. Oops. Index.html side by side, click left. Yeah. I'm just gonna close this menu. Cool. Cool. So here's the styles. So just to reiterate, what we did for the banner wrap is we had the entire banner wrap div, then we had the nav bar, and inside the nav bar we had the logo and the button, and then we actually had the main container, which contains the H1, H2, H3 tags and the form itself. And what we did for the banner container is, when we go to my CSS and open banner container, we gave it a display flex and changed the flex direction to columns so that they can appear as rows like this. And then we center aligned all the content inside it vertically and horizontally. And to do that, we used align items and justify content center. The other thing we did was We also added some padding so that they could align towards the center. That's what Netflix has done, and that's what we did as well. So let's get the first thing sorted. Let's actually get this thing towards the center of it, the center of the page. And to do that, if you notice, let me just right click this and see what they've done. But basically, we've center aligned this vertically and horizontally, and it still did not center align. And the reason for that is, let me actually just inspect this and show you what's actually happening behind here. So this is the banner container, and it doesn't have a fixed height. It just resized, and it's not supposed to do that. If you resize Netflix, it has like a fixed height. And we can solve that problem by giving a fixed height to the banner container. But before doing that, we need to check what the height of the navbar is, because remember, we actually have two divs right next to each other. So the first div is the navbar, and the second div is the banner container. So which means we have to specify height for both navbar and banner container to ensure that they fill the banner wrap. So we haven't given any height to the navbar div, so I'm going to give that first. So the height for this is, we can go directly check, oops, we're going to check the Netflix landing page, what height this could be. And it's, yeah, it should be that div. So they've got it about, what, 40, 50? I'm just going to make a guess right now, honestly.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to analyze, but guys, all the information is normally like on that inspect page of the clone that you want to do.
64 pixels. The height is
Great.
64 pixels, right? So what I'm going to do is,
that sounds small. That sounds really small. Oh, of the navbar. Okay.
Of the navbar, yeah. Of the navbar. 64 pixels of the navbar. And what I'm going to do is, for the banner container, I'm going to give it a height of, so I'm going to use the calc function in CSS to give me the height that is remaining. So what happens here is, what exactly I want is, I've got the height of the top nav, but I want the height for the remaining of the screen. And remember, this thing is responsive. So every time I move it up and down, the height keeps on changing. So I can't really keep it in pixels. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use a percentage over here. So I'll use 100%, and I'll subtract stop in the remaining of the height. So remember, this is 64 pixels, sorry. This is 64 pixels, and the rest is basically the height we're looking for. It's 100% minus the 64 will give us the remaining height. So 100% minus 64 pixels. This is the cool thing. You can subtract percentage with pixels, or percentage with VH. Yeah, you can do a whole lot of things like that. So let's see.
That's how CSS is smart that way.
Yeah. That looks better, but our button is messing up a bit. So what I think the 64 pixels is a bit bigger compared to the styling we used. So what we've done for the button is to make sure that the button fills the container, the height container. I think it's 100% for the button. Actually, we haven't given a height to the button, have we? It looks like we haven't. So by default, it's 100%. So I'm just going to reduce the height to 50 pixels. Just guessing. Did that work? Nope, didn't.
No, I think it's going to be.
Yeah, so I'm just going to reduce the height of the nav bar, and that should help fix the problem.
So there's like many ways of doing this.
Yeah, that really reduces the height. You see, yeah, 50 is a bit too much. 55 pixels maybe.
I think that's perfect.
5 looks perfect, man.
Legit.
Cool.
Yeah. Also change the height of the container that was calculated.
Yeah, correct. So where do that? I did it, yeah? So this is 50, I said 55, correct.
Yeah.
55 pixels. Now I need to ensure that this thing is center line somewhere down there. And that is still not working. is the calc
I think the
function?
space is not supposed to be.
Oh, okay, yeah. The calc function is only, so it's very case sensitive. Like if you, even if you remove the space over here, this will not work. Like the calc function doesn't work. So be careful with that. I remember me and Akhil struggled for like an hour, like a 30 minutes on a live workshop like this, trying to figure out that small error, that small space. So yeah, just be careful with that. It's very case sensitive. So as you can see, now the unlimited movie, the header has center aligned exactly where Netflix has center aligned, but Netflix seems to have a bigger font and ours seems much smaller. So we're gonna change that. We're gonna fix that. Did Netflix increase the font size or has it been like this always? I'm just
I
curious.
think it's always been like this. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Also, we should
Okay.
change the font weight of H1 and H2 so that it kind of looks similar.
Correct. Yes. Okay. I'm just gonna close this. So let's get the font height first for that. We're just gonna inspect that. And the font height is actually for REM. Font height for H1 is supposed to be 4 REM. I feel like they changed it honestly, but okay. Okay, that looks good. Much like what Netflix used. Ours seems a bit heavier. I wonder what the font weight
Yeah.
is. The font weight is 700. So I'm just going to give it a font weight of 700. Let's see if that helps. Didn't really help. That's a bit too much. Still a bit too much. I guess that's the different fonts. Anyways, I'm going to leave it like that. Looks very similar. Maybe
Just make it like
reduce it.
650. Make it like 50 less. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do 650 because when you're downloading this font, you've downloaded the weights of 400, 600, and 700, 700 and 800, which means you can't really do 650 or 500. You can only
Okay.
specify the
Cool. No,
ones
that
you
makes sense.
download. Yeah.
Let's do
So
600.
600. Yeah, I moved to 600, and that looks better. Oh, our font didn't pull through. Okay, that's good. Yeah. The next one is watch anywhere, cancel anytime. Let's see what they're using for that. Font size is 26 pixels. Let me check in REM,
Hey,
1.625
what
REM.
happened to our font?
Okay,
What happened to our font?
where?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I think it's fine. We just need to give
think-
it an overlay.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, it's looking
Yeah,
much better here. Yeah,
yep,
I think for the H2, let's just make the font weight 400.
400, right. Let's see what they're doing. They've got it as 400 as well. Did we download
Oh,
400? Yes, we've got
yeah.
400. So H2 font 400, font weight 400. Guys, remember if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll be answering on the go. Then we have this ready to watch. Let's check what font weight they have. It's 419.2. That's about 1.2 REM. And it also has some sort of padding. And I haven't really defined the H3 tag here. So I'm just going to create the H3 tag, font size of 1.2 REM. And font weight stays at 400. It's most likely 400.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, that's looking good. There's some sort of padding up and top and bottom. We can add that as well. Let's just check where the padding is coming from. There's a margin all around H2, which means let's just check what the margin is. It's top and bottom 16, left and right 75. So I'm gonna give H2 a margin of, should I give it to H2? Yeah, H2 top and bottom was 16 pixels, and left and right was 75 pixels. Awesome. Let's just see what's happening here. That's much more cleaner. And then we have ready to watch. And what happens in ready to watch is H3. Okay, H3 has some sort of padding as well. Let me check that.
No,
Oh, it's
I don't think
actually,
it's
I
the
think it's the
form.
entire form. It's the entire form that has it. Have we
Yeah.
put it inside the form? H3. Okay, so it's the get started form. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's fine. So what I'm gonna do is let's start by defining get started dot get started. And inside get started, let's just start by adding that padding of, I can't figure out what that number is. Do you know what that number is?
60, 600.
Come in 100. Okay, I can scroll down and check here. Where?
Padding top 13.6 pixels.
13.6 pixels. That's so accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Maybe
padding
it's
13
the
point.
relative sizing. It's a relative sizing here.
Oh,
Maybe
relative.
yeah, just make it 1 REM.
One REM might be a bit too big. Yeah, 16
Maybe
pixels a bit too.
0.8.
So we can check here. It's 0.85. 0.85 REM.
Yeah.
0.85.
Guys, just
Yeah.
like for those of you who are wondering what REM stands for, it's basically relative to elements, right? So I'm not sure what the EM stands for. Basically, REM is it does the sizing relative to the root element. So we've actually spoken about this before, but basically right now our root size is 16 pixels. So Harjot is highlighting 16 pixels there. And when we say 1 REM, it's equal to 16 pixels. When we say 0.85 REM, that's equal to 0.85 times 16, which is 13.6 pixels. So as the screen size changes, right? As the screen size changes, or whenever we change that root value, this value is going to change. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So where this helps is when creating like two different style sheets, maybe for a mobile phone or something, you don't want to go on each and every style over here and change the value. So you can just directly change the font size, and since everything is dependent on the font size, the root font size, the font will easily change. So if I give an example, if I change it to 10 pixels, everything is gonna become smaller here. Oops, this is the actual Netflix. Yeah, so as you can see, everything became much smaller than before. So I'm just gonna put it back to 16 pixels, make sure it's back to normal, and yeah, it is. Okay, amazing. Now let's just style the form itself. The form is basically the email address and get started. And let's see what these guys have done, or what Netflix has done to this form. Okay, cool. So they have this entire div input form. Then they have the label inside it. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to my get started and see what we have. We have this input box. Then there's some padding on the right, and there's some margin also maybe. It has a border all around. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove everything so that we can style it ourselves. So I'm going to start with margin. Margin will be 0. Padding will be 0. If we need to add padding margin, we can do that later after we've removed all the styling. Border will be none. And let's see how that is. Did that work? I have to do it on the form. I have to do it to the input form.
Oh yeah, you have to do it on the form, hey? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna cut that.
Actually on the input tag.
Yeah, on the input tag, yeah. Input and paste it there. Cool. Yeah, everything looks gone. There's still some sort of padding there. I don't know why that's happening.
I think there is a pad.
I think that's on the button. That's on the button maybe. But let's get this sorted. Let's check the height for this. And this is approximately, we can't really see the height. It's about 60 pixels. So I can give the form a height of 60 pixels. So what I'm going to do is, instead of giving the form a height of 60 pixels, I'll give the entire div, a height of 60 pixels, because the button itself is also 60 pixels. So get started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, like what I'm thinking is, remember inside get started, we also have the H3, right? So I think rather let's give the height to the form, because the form only has the input and the button.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got it. Yeah, cool. That's right. So get started. The form itself, specifying the form, give the height of 60 pixels or 60 pixels.
Yeah, approx.
Yeah, it was 60 pixels.
Yeah, it's 60 pixels. Yeah.
Let's okay. We should probably give it a display of flex so we can play around with it. So do we need to do that? Let's see. Display flex.
Yeah. Because we want the input and the button to be in the same line.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so everything looks okay. It's coming out better now.
Let's give a width to the input.
Okay, so the width to the input, let's see what the width of it here is. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a screenshot tool. It's so easier. I'm going to highlight that part. That's about 450 pixels wide. So I'm going to give it a width.
Like, if you want to use the screenshot tool on Mac, it's Command-Shift-4. For Windows, I'm actually not too sure. It'll be great if someone else can drop it in the chat, unless we have all Mac users in the stream right now.
Okay, that's great. So the form is coming out better. That's looking good. I see there's some sort of, let's see, what do they have? There's some sort of padding on the left over here, and we can give that. So what I'm going to do is to the input padding. So padding left, maybe. Padding left. Let's see if that works. Maybe like 10 pixels.
10 pixels.
Not too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Now, next thing is the button itself, the get started button. So before that, should I increase the space here? There's some spacing. This is annoying me. Yeah, that thing has some sort of spacing. H3. So let's see what H3 has. H3 has a padding of left and right 47 pixels and bottom 20 pixels. Okay. So I'm going to go back to H3, padding bottom, and padding bottom of 20 pixels. Let's see. Okay, beautiful. This looks so clean. Now let's do the get started button. And I'm just gonna create a new div, new tag, get started, focusing on button. I'm gonna give it a class actually. Class of btn. And call.btn here. First thing I'll do is change the background color. Let's change that to red. I know it's not that red. We can go use the color inspector. I think we've used that red before.
I think it's that red.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Whoops, where did you go?
Command Z, dude. Yeah, okay.
Did I mess it up? No.
No, it's all good.
Here.
Check out the width of the button.
Yeah, let's check out the width. I'm going to inspect that, and that entire div has a width of about 195 pixels, eh?
I think it's like 255.
Is it 255?
Yeah, I think you just hover over the button again. Hover over it. So you can see, it's 247.6.
Yeah, 247, 248. So about 248 in width.
Yeah.
And then it has a padding inside. Width of 248 pixels. And padding top and bottom, not sure what that is. I'm just gonna put it at 0 pixels. Left and right, it's about 26 pixels.
Wow, that's massive.
6 pixels. I mean, the width is 248 pixels.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. It also, I can see the button has a border of like a black border, and that's not supposed to be black. So I'm just gonna check what the border is. So they use border background color, Border bottom,
Just make it border none.
border none. Yeah, I'm just gonna remove the border. Let's see, more like it, eh?
Yeah.
It has like a, yeah, I think this is fine. Do I have to add like border radius on the left and right?
I
Maybe,
think, do they have any border radius?
yeah, they do have some sort of.
I think it's like
Let's
2
see if I can
pixels.
copy that. Let's 2 pixels, yeah. Border bottom right radius of 2 pixels, and border bottom, border top.
Top
That's
right.
border
Yeah.
top right, yeah. So top right radius of 2 pixels as well. Very accurate. Beautiful. Now
Let's change
let's pick
color.
font. Yeah, let's change the font color to white, and font size. Will that change? Will that help? Let's see.
We need to check. Yeah, we need to check the REM.
Not sure how to get the REM for this right now. I
Just
think,
type on filter, just type font size.
yeah, I wanted to get the REM because this filter will give me pixels.
Yeah,
Font
we'll
size
convert
26 pixels. So if you do 26 divided by 16, you get me the
1.625
1.625 pixels. Oh, REM.
REM.
Great. Oh, wait, is this how? Oh, okay, okay. That's pretty. I was like, wait,
Big
am I looking at the right one? Okay, cool. Now that's looking much cleaner, eh? Now what we have to work on is that overlay effects. And to work
Yeah.
on the overlay effects, let me just open up the slides quickly. I didn't have the slides opened up, so I'm just going to open them up here. Just want to go over the selector, the after selector. In the meantime, let's see what they have done for the after selector. So I'm just going to right click and inspect for the entire container. Can I figure out if they have like an after effect or something? The story, that's the one. It should be the entire container. Let's see if they have some sort of styling anyway. Nope, I can't figure out any styling, but a cool way is using an after selector. And so what the after selector does is it basically inserts something after a content has been loaded. So let's say a background image loads, then it will add that after selector on top of that background image. So what it will add the contents of the after selector on top of the background image. And this is our first type. I think it's the first time we've come across a pseudo selector. This is called a pseudo selector, where you have 2 columns and then you type after. That's a pseudo selector. And how this works is, so there's an example here, and how this works is you basically define the class, and then after that class has loaded, so the example here is banner wrap. So after banner wrap has loaded, it will insert all the content inside this in this after selector. So the height 100%, width 100%, content 0, and with a background, that will be inserted on top of banner wrap. So let's try this. So we have banner wrap up here. So dot banner wrap. And I'm going to use the after selector now. Double colons after Visual Studio finds that as well, identifies it. And inside this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it okay, now the first thing is we have to make sure we get a position of it. But let's just give it a height and width. Height of 100%, width of 100%. It should fill the container. Oops. And then we'll give it a background color of, let me just use RGB. Uh, let me zeros. Okay, let me use black color so it just takes over everything. Let's start with that first. Okay, let's see if it appears. It's nowhere. Like we can't see the selector. Nothing happened. Now, to make sure that it actually appears, first thing we have to make sure is that the content of the after selector, there's no div, there's nothing in it. So we have to make sure we have to define this CSS selector called content, and we have to keep it to empty because there's nothing in it. It's just background color. There's no div or anything. The next thing we have to ensure is that we have to give it a position. So Akhil went through relative and absolute positioning, and we want the content of the after selector to be relative to the banner wrap. Now, how we do this is we need to define the banner wrap as relative. So position, we'll give it a position of relative. And then to the banner wrap itself, we give it a position of absolute because we want it to be relative to the banner wrap. So the content of the after selector needs to be relative to the original banner wrap content. So position.
So just to recap that, guys, basically, when we say position relative, we're saying that, and when we say banner wrap after the pseudo selector, we're saying that we're going to target, like, once the banner wrap has loaded and it has a position of relative, the banner wrap after element is going to be taken, it's going to take the banner wrap out of the flow, right? It's going to take it out of the flow of the document. And that's why we're using position absolute. And it's only going to do it relative to its parent, which is the banner wrap, right? So this is a little tricky. That's why we really emphasized on the position, but just watch it come along. Okay, so just watch it come along, trust the process. Yeah.
Cool. Position, we gave it a position absolute, nothing happened. We need to give it the actual coordinates. So top 0, I want it to be, I want this to start from the top left, from right there. So the coordinates for that is top 0, left 0. Let's see if anything happens. Ooh, everything's gone. So there it appears, but that's not really what we want. So we really just want an overlay, like a blackish overlay. And to do that, we can add some opacity. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to use the RGBA method to add opacity, RGBA. And this allows us to add the opacity. So you can add all the red color, the green color, so that's RGB. And alpha basically allows us to set the opacity of that color. So how much do you want it to be seen through it? So I want the red to be 0, this to be 0, blue to be 0, opacity of, let's say, 0.6, something like that. It's out of 7. Let's try 4, maybe 0.4. That's a bit too much, too less, 0.6.
Maybe 0.5 or 0. Yeah, I think 0.6
was quite, was quite accurate. But now, if you notice that the opacity, the overlays over the entire landing page, you know, it's, you want the words to show up, the logo, the button to show up. You can't really do anything because the overlay has taken over everything. So I can't even click on the get started button, the email address, I can't fill in anything. And to sort that issue out, we're gonna use Z index. So Akhil, did you go through Z? You went through a Z index, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So do you want to explain how Z index would work over here?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, guys, what's happening is we want the elements inside banner wrap to appear in front. And then we want the elements that are inside banner wrap after the pseudo selector. Once it loads, we're adding that overlay after the banner wrap has loaded. We want that to be behind, right? So that we can click on the elements ahead. So what we'll do is we're going to give banner wrap a Z index of 1 so that it's ahead, right? And we're going to give banner wrap after a Z index of -1, and so that we can push it behind.
Yay, that will work.
Yeah, and now you might be wondering, like, when we do Z index -1, shouldn't the banner wrap just be ahead and like the opacity goes, like, I mean, the overlay goes? That doesn't happen, right? Because we've given it a position of absolute. When we give a position of absolute, it's taken out of the element flow. and we've given it a content of null. So like there's no content, and we'll put it at the top left. So it is going to appear there regardless. But the elements with Z index 1 are going to appear ahead. So now you can see that the app has really pulled through nicely. Like it's looking pretty much like Netflix, you know.
Yeah, man. This legit looks like Netflix. Whoa.
I think
I know
there's
some styling error here.
yeah, I think because we added
Maybe we can fix
like
that.
padding left and right for H2. Do you want to just add that padding left and right for H1 as well? And then
Oh,
that'll
right. Oh, right. Okay, cool. I see. Can I just define padding H1, H2, H3 inside banner wrap?
yeah, I mean that's how it initially was actually, but I just changed it so that I can style the H1.
Okay, so what do you want me to do?
You can just add the margin as well to H1 margin.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow, guys.
Guys, is this our app or is this Netflix? Like, share it
Netflix.
to your friends and trip them up.
I know we don't have enough time to do the footer. That's what is remaining. Then the frequently asked questions. But guys, I hope you get the gist of it. You know, you can literally just continue and do the footer over here, create the frequently asked questions section using the same methods. Like you're just gonna repeat, create another div, add styling to it, copy the styling from the Netflix page.
There's actually one thing I just want to cover with that, right? So do you mind just pushing your code? I just want to show you guys how you would go about styling your lists, right? That can be a bit tricky as well. So I'm just going to show this real quick so that you can go ahead and build your own footer. It should take like 2 minutes to show you guys that. So we'll just push it up.
Can we push this code to Netlify and make sure it's online?
Yeah, that's actually part of the agenda as well. So we'll be doing that.
Awesome. Cool. I've pushed it. Yeah, you should be able to
Great.
that.
So
for those who haven't been able to keep up, you can download the code now and you reuse it because it's now online.
Great. So what I'll do is this is our Netflix app where I left off, right? And now I'm just going to do git pull origin master so I can pull whatever Harjot has added right now. Great. So you can see that all the styles that Harjot has appeared here. And then you can see that it's appearing. Like this is it, guys. This is like Netflix app. It's looking pretty legit. Like I am super stoked about this. Awesome. What I'll do is I'll just quickly show you guys how you can go about styling the footer. So I'm just going to create a footer div real quick. And what I'll do is I'm just going to uncomment this that we worked on this before, right? I'm going to put everything in here, okay? And there's just one thing I want to show you guys, right? How you can go about making it look similar to Netflix, right? So you can see that if I just scroll down to Netflix's footer, right? You can see that we can actually hover over these items. You can it's like side by side, but it's all lists still, right? Because remember, when we removed the styling, we could see it as lists, right? So you can see that the div is there. What I'll do is I'm going to just style the footer real quick over here. Right, I'm gonna give the color of, I think it's like a grayish color. Not sure exactly what that color could be. Maybe I'm just gonna copy this temporarily for now, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna save that. And you can see it's a gray color. And then I'm just gonna change the background to black, okay? And now I just wanna show you guys the main thing, which is how would you go about making these links appear? Let me just quickly add a border top as well. Oh, sorry, wrong place. To the footer, so that we can see a nice border there. And then might as well just add some padding while we're at it. And you can see that, so it's so quick, like so quickly we can add these styles. So you can see that it appears as bullets like this. So first thing is, how do you remove the bullets? Like how do you get it to style? How do you get it such that there are no bullets that are ruining the style, right? So basically, in order to do that, what you need to do is you do dot footer. And then we have UL, right? So I'm just going to target the UL directly over here. Okay. And I'm just going to make list type none. So this is the thing, list style type. I'm just going to make it none, right? So now you can see that it's gone. Like whatever was there, whatever bullets were there have disappeared. Okay. So that's how you would remove the bullets. Now the next thing is inside the UL, we have all these different list items, right? All these LIs, right? How do we go about styling the LIs? Now, in order to style the LIs, what you do is we can have another pseudo selector, right? So we did after. Similarly, we have something called hover, okay? And when we hover over it, we want the text decoration to be underlined. So now every time we hover over it, it's going to appear underlined. And then we want the cursor to be pointer, right? Such that when we hover over it, it becomes like a pointer like that. Okay. Now, if you want to make it like into 4 different columns, you can just use, what you can do is you can put it into 2 divs, right? You can just create like a call like that. And then what you can do is, it's like a nice little hack. I'm just going to put it into two rows, 2 columns for now, right? And I'm just going to put these ULs inside the separate divs, okay? Basically what I've done is I've split the list right now. So it'll still appear one underneath the other, but now what you can go ahead and do, you can use display flex so that it appears in a row, and the rest you guys should be able to change from here. That's about it. So you can see it appears, and then you can add padding and so on, and you can basically style it accordingly. Okay, so that's how you would go about doing the footer. Now, literally within the next 2 minutes, I'll show you guys how we can take this and put it on the web. Okay, so you go to Netlify. I'm going to log in into my Netlify account. So Netlify is a tool that is used to deploy applications. So we normally deploy all our applications on Netlify, like the Zayo platform is deployed on Netlify. We also use Heroku now and again for mainly like back-end stuff, but like for front-end, front-end stuff like HTML, CSS, React, I feel like Netlify is so smooth. It's like really, really easy to deploy. If my connectivity was better, I would have deployed it by now. So when I say deploy, I mean like we're going to have like a www link that we'll be able to use. So just waiting for it to load. And what I can do is I can either pull it from, I can link it with my Git account, right? And it'll be deployed. So every time I push to master, it'll be deployed. Alternatively, I can actually just drag and drop it here, right? So Harjot, what route should we go?
Let's start with drag and drop. It's shocking how quick that is.
Great. So what you can do is here, you can see that you want to deploy a site, you can just drag and drop your site over here, right? So I'm just going to move this slightly like that. And I think it was this. This is the project. I'm just going to go on a limb here. And I've just dragged and dropped the folder, right? I've just put the folder there. And you can see that we have like a weird name, Confident Query. We can change that name. So it's deploying. Now if I click on that link, Confident Query, you can see that our Netflix app, guys, is live. Like it is online. It is live. So
you want to change the name and then we can drop this link on the YouTube chat?
Yeah, let's do that. So you go to site settings. You can actually change the site name. And I'm just going to call this Netflix DSC US 0. Okay, save.
Awesome.
And now I'm just going to copy that link. Let's actually open it. Let's see if it actually works.
Yeah, awesome. Man.
Copying the link, dropping it in the chat for you guys to check it out. That's right, Michael. It has come through together, and that is the link. That is how That's how we roll, like, guys. That's how we do it. Like, that's practical experience right there. This is a project you can add to your portfolio. You can take this forward. You can update it further. You know how to do an overlay in any of your projects. If you want to do an overlay, you can use this style over here in any of your projects. If you want to like put like a video inside a TV kind of vibe, you can use the position property. So like, you've taken a lot from this workshop. We've gone through HTML, CSS basics. We've not covered everything, of course. Yes, it works, Michael. And this is a starting point for you guys to continue from here. There's so many things you can still go through, but with this knowledge, you can start your projects, you can continue learning on the go. And if you're keen to do more workshops, you can always let us know, talk to your DSC leads, hit us up on Instagram, and we're happy to do more workshops. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this workshop.
Awesome. Anyone with any questions? If you're watching this later offline, yeah, you can hit us up on Instagram. So Akhil, do you want to just open up that last page, last
sure.
slide? And we also have a discount code. Nice. Akhil, do you want to just explain the discount code?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, guys, as usual, this is like the third time we're saying this. Firstly, your feedback would mean a lot to us. So I'm just gonna drop the feedback link on the chat. So those of you who watch the video after as well, please, like, we'd appreciate the feedback, good, bad, the ugly, it's all good. Like, we just want to learn as much as possible. And yeah, basically check us out, check what Zayo does. We're a training company based out in SA. We've been doing this for 3 years. We've done over 600 plus iterations on our training programs. So we've learned a lot. Like, we strongly believe in learning. We're starting a program in November. So if it doesn't work out for you guys, we'll also run programs throughout the year, and we'll be running one next year. We also have some in the next summer, so it'll be great for you guys. And if you apply with this code here, you get a $200 discount, the DSC Web Dev WD200. You should get a $200 discount, and it'll be fun to be with you guys on the inside. Like, one of the biggest things, you're building your network, you're meeting people from all over the world, which is a lot of fun. And of course, you're learning amazing skills that you can put to practice, and you can put it on your portfolio, and you can make yourself more presentable so you can land jobs easily. Cool. And these are our Instagram tags, guys. Connect with us on Instagram. I'm Harjot Singh, Akhil Bodu, Zayo.io. We'd love to get to know you guys. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this series. The Netflix landing page is officially complete. You can add this to your GitHub portfolio now. Awesome. Thank you, Ovani. Thank you so much. It was a really great workshop. Yeah.
Awesome.
Any questions?
Anything from the DSC team?
Yeah, the DSC team. We got Aaron in the
Thank
house.
you, Zayo, for the great workshop. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we are looking forward for the next one. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, this was totally fun and informative. Can't wait for the next one, guys. Amazing.
Awesome.
Next one is
Awesome.
YouTube.
Can't
Yeah.
wait to see you all the next one, and shout out to everyone at Untitled here today.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you guys in the next one. The next one, we will actually be doing the YouTube clone. So we'll try our best to cover as much as possible in the 1.5 hours, but we probably won't get a finished product, but we'll set you guys up to actually build an amazing product. Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.